This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. So last week was actually quite a interesting week for me because I had like three kind of product launches that I got asked if I would kind of do. So one was Walrus Audio, the other was obviously Tonex One and the Friedman IRD. Now, for a while I was kind of a little bit like well, I had my own feelings about what it would be like to do gear demos, and probably some of them have stayed pretty much the same in that I don't think it's particularly difficult to find positive things to say about gear that you're sent for free and being paid to demonstrate. That said, it is a way of helping to pay for nappies and stuff. However, a thing that I thought deserved looking at again is the IK Multimedia Tonex One. I think this was the one that stuck out to me as being pretty interesting product. Specifically for me, I got asked a question the other day about how would this fit into a rig versus a Boss IR2. Now, Tony from up the road is actually borrowing my Boss IR2. I'm going to do a video on that later on. But it kind of got me thinking, actually, yeah, it's kind of a similar kind of product in a way. But they've done some really clever things with it. So in terms of things that I didn't realize, this output here is actually stereo, and because of that you don't even need a headphone output on it. You can just plug a headphone straight into it, and that's pretty cool. And it's also pretty cool because one of the things that I really liked about the Tonex stuff in general is the plate reverb on there. And on my preset that I loaded into here, I have like a stereo plate kind of thing. And the other cool thing about it is you've got a compressor built into it. So what I'm actually finding is that just plugged into this Tonex One with a preset that I dialed in with the Tonex software itself back along, probably for the first demo. I think when they asked me if I wanted to check out the piece of gear, what really attracted me to the Tonex stuff in the first place was the Joe Bonamassa Dumble amp that they bought off him. And then from there, I took one of those presets, kind of made a few tweaks to it, added a bit of the compressor, added a plate reverb. And to me, it's been one of the most satisfying things to plug into. It's also kind of interesting that this is one of the few items in the kind of modeling world that, you know, you can have the sound in your DAW or you can have the sound in hardware form. Now, this is something the Helix does with Helix Native. It's not something that many other products do, so I still think it's worth talking about as being like a highlight of the IK Multimedia stuff, because, you know, this could be on my pedal board, and then when it comes to actually recording, I can go into Tonex, and I think it's Tonex Max that you would need to have to get that Dumble stuff. So it's, you know, the specific Dumble ODS that they bought off of Joe Bonamassa, rather than there's another set of Dumble captures. This is the kind of one little bit of a downside that I'm thinking with this IK Multimedia kind of ecosystem, is that the, you know, bundles and stuff like that can get a bit confusing. And then also this kind of pay to play element, I think, can possibly, you know, I'm quite like with like the Fractal and Line 6 stuff that, you know, you're getting free updates and some of the stuff is being generated for free. But with this paid model, I guess it does mean that, you know, they've gone into a Nashville studio and recorded like actual Dumble amps and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool if that's the way things are going. There are also third-party Overall, I'm really impressed with this as a little piece of tech. I think it's possibly even my favourite IK Multimedia thing that they've come out with so far, as well as being super easy to integrate into a pedal board. I really like the idea of having two profiles that you can switch between. I think that's pretty clever. So you could, you know, what I've had is kind of one Dumble and then my next click takes me to like that but boosted. There are a few things you could do like that, or you could use it, you know, for a clean and a dirty. But I think for me, what this is working really nicely as is kind of like a pedal platform type vibe. In the intro there, I was plugging a Zen drive into it, but I did just want to do a quick follow-up because, yeah, I think it is one of those kind of little products which kind of stands out as being pretty interesting. There is at least one Dumble model included. I think there are 20 kind of premium tone models that you get with this, and the Dumble ODS is one of those. So that's kind of cool. Tuner built in as well, which is also quite handy. So I think they've packed quite a lot of stuff into here. And another positive versus something like the Kemper, where if you deviate with the Kemper, you can deviate a long way from what the original profile was, and in a way that possibly makes things sound quite strange. The bass, mids and trebles and the gain on the Tonex stuff is kind of relatively safe, relatively, you know, you can make changes, but it's not as drastic as what you can do on the Kemper, so you don't tend to stray too far away from what the original was. So the rig for that intro there was a Zen drive into the Tonex One on that Dumble preset, and then I put after that the HX effects. I can see this being something that would work quite well for quite a lot of people that are maybe reluctant to spend too much money on this kind of side of stuff, where it's like maybe you wouldn't use it all the time, but maybe you'd have something like this under your board, like my buddy Jake had a Universal Audio Dream 65 just on his board or underneath his board for times when he had to go direct. I think this sort of thing could work really well for that. Could work well for integrating with an HX Stomp if you wanted to try some new stuff. Could work well, you know, with an HX Effects, as I used in this intro, you know, as part of a bigger board. I think it does a lot of things pretty well, and similarly with like the Boss IR2, although I do think this probably, for me, what makes this a little bit more user-friendly is that someone else has created those tone models for you, rather than you kind of having to dial in stuff, and maybe as a user we make kind of weird choices, you know, whereas this kind of takes some of that guesswork away in some regards. And definitely some of my favourite kind of Dumble style tones that I've ever played. Just feels great under the fingers. So yeah, I just wanted to look at the Tonex One again. They did send it to me free, and they did sponsor the last video on it, but I just did want to revisit it because it was a lot of fun plugging into it and playing it. And whether I ever use the Tonex stuff for anything other than those Dumble models, it may never actually be the case, but some of the most satisfying Dumble style tones that I've ever played, you know, when I've had real amps in the room, like it's not possible to get them loud enough to get those kind of tones in general. So this is kind of the next best thing for me. Let me know your thoughts on the Tonex One in the comments if you have any. Are you going to try one? Are you turned off by any of the aspects of it, or turned on by any of it? Sounds a bit weird, isn't it? I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers.